Right now, you're doing it. Reading these words in your head. Maybe your lips are moving slightly. Maybe you're mouthing them. Maybe there's a voice in your mind that sounds like yours, narrating this sentence back to you as it happens. Now imagine you don't speak for 7 days. Not a word out loud. Not a whisper to yourself in the kitchen. Not a mumbled thanks to a barista. Nothing. And here's the strange part. Within about 72 hours, something inside you begins to come apart. And what breaks first is not what you'd expect. The answer changes almost everything we assume about who we are. We think of speech as a tool, something we use, something we pick up when we need it and set down when we're done. A hammer for the mind. But that isn't what it is. Speech is closer to breath, closer to heartbeat. It runs beneath everything you do, whether you're using it or not. And when you stop, the machinery underneath doesn't go quiet. It gets louder. In 1972, a French geologist named Michel Siffre climbed down into a cave in Texas and stayed there alone for 6 months. No sunlight, no clocks, no other human voice. He kept a journal. He talked sometimes to a research team on a crackling phone line, but for most of those days there was nothing to say, and no one to say it to. By day 79, he wrote that he had begun to forget the shape of his own voice. By day 100, he was hallucinating. A mouse became a companion. He named it. He grieved when it died. What Siffre discovered underground is what monks have always known. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is a pressure. That pressure has a name in the brain. Its home is a small strip of tissue on the left side of your skull, called Broca's area, and it does not switch off when you go quiet. In 2016, researchers at UCLA scanned the brains of Trappist monks who had taken vows of extended silence. What they found was startling. Broca's area was not resting. It was hyperactive. The moment external speech stopped, internal speech surged. The monks reported that the voice in their heads did not fade. It grew louder, faster, more insistent. Some described it as a river breaking a dam. Others called it a haunting. Your inner voice, it turns out, was never really yours alone. It was shaped by everyone who ever spoke to you. Your mother, your teachers, the boy who bullied you when you were 9. They are all still in there murmuring. And speech out loud is how you push some of them back down. Take away the outlet and they rise. By day 3 of silence, most people begin to experience what psychologists call linguistic drift. It was first documented in 1954 by a Harvard researcher named Donald Hebb, who was studying sensory deprivation. His subjects, kept in isolation for as little as 48 hours, began to lose grip on the meaning of common words. They would think the word chair and no longer be sure what it referred to. They would try to speak when finally allowed and produce sentences that were grammatically correct but semantically off, as if the wiring between word and world had loosened. Language, Hebb realized, is not stored. It is maintained. Every time you speak, you are rehearsing the connection between a sound and a thing, between a symbol and a memory, between yourself and the world outside your skin. And that connection frays quickly when it is not used. Not over years, not over months, over days. But here's what's fascinating. While one part of you is falling apart, another part is waking up. Around day 4, subjects in silence studies begin to report an eerie sharpening of the senses. Colors seem deeper. Sounds arrive with more detail. The hum of a refrigerator becomes a symphony. The texture of bread on the tongue becomes overwhelming. A neuroscientist named Imke Kirste, working at Duke in 2013, discovered something that would go on to change how we think about silence entirely. She found that 2 hours of pure silence per day in mice caused the growth of new neurons in the hippocampus, the part of the brain that handles memory, that handles becoming a self. Silence, in other words, does not empty you. It builds you. This is the part almost nobody talks about. The reason silent retreats have existed in nearly every human culture for at least 3,000 years is not spiritual mystery. It is neurological. Your brain, deprived of speech, begins reallocating resources. Broca's area calms after about a week. What replaces it is a flood of activity in the default mode network, the system responsible for daydreaming, for autobiographical memory, for the sense of being a continuous person moving through time. Silence done long enough gives you back to yourself. But that reunion is not always gentle. On day 5, many people report what the Buddhist tradition calls the second wall, a wave of grief so sudden and so specific that it feels like being ambushed by a stranger who knows everything about you. Old arguments resurface. Faces you had forgotten appear in vivid detail. You remember without warning something small and cruel that you said to someone 30 years ago. You remember the exact color of the light in a room where someone once told you they loved you. Cry, and you don't fully know why. This is not breakdown. This is bandwidth. For most of your waking life, a significant portion of your brain is dedicated to language, to formulating what you will say next, to rehearsing what you should have said, to running the constant background commentary of your own existence. Neuroscientists estimate that internal and external speech together consume up to 20% of the brain's total energy budget. 20%. Turn that off And where does the energy go? It goes to what was buried underneath. It goes to what you did not have room to feel. It goes to the child version of you who is still somewhere in there, waiting to be listened to. And here is where the deep time comes in. For roughly 95% of human existence, we lived in small groups where silence was as common as speech. The anthropologist Polly Weisner, studying the Juhoansi people of the Kalahari in 2014, found that hunter-gatherer conversation happened in bursts around the fire at night. During shared meals, long stretches of the day passed with nothing said at all. Walking, watching, working stone, waiting for animals. Nobody filled the air. Nobody had to. We are not in our bones a species of constant talkers. We became one. The average modern human, according to a 2007 study by psychologist Matthias Mehl at the University of Arizona, speaks approximately 16,000 words per day. 16,000. Our great-grandparents, by most estimates, spoke a fraction of that. Our ancestors, less still. Silence used to be the sea we swam in. Speech was the island. Now the island has swallowed the sea, and your nervous system, which was calibrated over 300,000 years to something else entirely, is beginning to notice. By day 6 of silence, something curious happens to time itself. Subjects consistently report that the day feels longer, not slower in a bad way, longer in a good way, fuller, as if hours have been given back to them. The neuroscientist David Eagleman has shown that our perception of time is tightly coupled to the density of new information the brain is processing. Speech, ironically, compresses time. It gives us fewer distinct moments to remember, because so much of the moment is spent producing words about it. Take the words away and the moments swell. You begin to notice the light on a wall, the precise weight of a cup, the shape of your own breathing. You begin to notice that you were, most days, only half here. On day 7, most people who complete a silent week describe the same thing, a profound reluctance to speak again. When the vow ends and they are told they may talk, they hesitate. Some cry. Some laugh at nothing. Almost all of them say that the first words out of their mouth feel wrong, clumsy, loud, like putting on shoes that no longer fit. They have been somewhere. And speech, for a moment, is the border they must cross to come back. Most of us will never take a week of silence. We have jobs. We have children. We have people who need to hear our voices in order to feel loved. But there is something to notice here. Quietly, in the space between sentences you speak today, you are not just talking to communicate. You are talking to hold yourself together, to keep the version of you that other people know from dissolving, to keep the river of inner voices from becoming a flood. Every word you say out loud is, in some small way, a spell against the silence underneath. And that silence is not your enemy. It is the room your ancestors lived in. It is the space in which their brains grew new cells, and their memories rearranged themselves, and their grief found somewhere to go. You inherited that room. You just stopped going in. A week without speech will not make you enlightened. It will not fix your life. What it does is quieter than that. It hands you back a version of yourself that has been standing in the next room for a long time, waiting patiently, wondering when you were going to notice. Most of us never do. If something in this made you feel a little more still than you did a few minutes ago, consider staying with that stillness. Subscribe if you want more of these. Like the video if it earned it. Share it with the person you would sit in silence with. And then, if only for a few minutes, try not speaking. See who's waiting for you in there.